Hello, I'm Bob Marks. I'm an astrologer, and you're watching the Barry Z Show. Happy holidays, folks.
Next. All right, what's your name, honey?
I'm Barbara Z, and I'm innocent until proven guilty.
Yeah. Is that her?
Oh my God! Yes, it's her. It's that crazy Yenta.
That's it. We got it. Busted.
Happy holidays and welcome back to the Barry Z Show. Tonight, my special guest is astrologer Bob Marks, right?
Last time I looked, yes.
You're going to tell us something interesting, right? Because the last time we had you on the show, you told us that Hillary was going to win, and that didn't happen.
Yeah. Okay.
You know who won, right? Bob
Yes. Okay. There's the Dixville Notch chart. Every presidential election since 1960, the people of Dixville Notch, this tiny town in northern New Hampshire, get together at midnight and they all vote at once so that they could be the first ones voting. Now, the horoscope for the election should be the first vote that's cast on election day. And for years, they were the first votes cast. But now, what do we have? Early voting. Now, there's no way to tell who the first person voting was this year, because which state had the first voting? When was the first vote cast? We don't know. So that method can't be used anymore. There's another method. You can simply compare the charts of the two candidates. Now, when it comes to relationship charts, that's a very complicated field. Well, actually, you can't just compare the two charts. You have to make a third horoscope, what's known as a relationship horoscope. It's the midpoint of the birth dates, birth times, and birth locations. Even then, that doesn't tell the whole story. You have to have two more charts. I named them after myself.
Right?
Oh, yes. But I named them. I named this after myself. Mark's charts. I made midpoint charts with each person with the relationship chart, and those charts show exactly how the relationship affects each person individually. I did it for first one I did was for Kennedy and Nixon. Kennedy's chart with Nixon had Jupiter, the planet of good luck, right at the top. Nixon's chart with Kennedy had Saturn, the planet of difficulties, right opposite the rising. So, Kennedy had the edge in that relationship. Now, this time, there was an additional problem. Nobody really knows Hillary Clinton's time of birth. She's a Scorpio, and she kept it secret. There's 8 a.m., there's 8 p.m., and now an astrologer did what's called a rectification. He used events in her life to figure out the chart, and he claims it's around 2 in the morning. So there's now 3 charts for her. So we couldn't use that method at all for this particular election.
But what method did you use? Because you told me Hillary's going to...
I used the Dixville Notch charts. I used the Dixville Notch charts, and apparently, because of early voting, they're no longer valid. Wow. So if they ever get rid of early voting and the people of Dixville Notch keep voting at midnight every presidential election, then those charts would work again. But as it is, they don't work.
What's the real reason she lost?
What's the real reason she lost?
Yeah, was it the astronomy? You know, the planets?
We don't know the exact time of her birth. But if she is indeed born either at 2 in the morning or 8 in the morning, well, the planet Saturn is now at the lower half of her chart, and it's going down. So that's not how you get elected. Trump, on the other hand, Saturn in his chart is on the right-hand side. Saturn, as it is now in the sky, is at the right-hand side of his chart, and it's going up. So that gave him a boost, and it pulled her down.
So that's the reason why Trump won, huh?
That's the reason why Hillary lost. In addition, well, astrology aside, she did neglect a whole class of voters, the working class voters in the middle of the country, and they're the ones that voted against her.
Now, you're a top-notch astronomer, right?
Astrologer.
What's the difference?
Astronomers just look at the planets. Astrologers cast charts to see what's happening, what's going to be happening here on Earth.
Okay, so knowing what you know, okay, you were convinced that Hillary was going to win, and that's what you said on my TV show, but that didn't happen.
Yes, and I already told you why.
Okay.
Next question.
There was no way to change that, huh? Well, you didn't foresee it, right?
Hello, I don't do readings on my readings. Let me do a reading to see if this reading is going to be good. But now I'll have to do a reading to see if the reading of the reading is going to be good. Now I'm going to have to do a reading of the reading. You see where that's leading.
Is this the only time you ever screwed up, or the astrological system was screwed up?
The astrological system works fine. No, this is my particular screw up. Several other astrologers have also predicted Hillary for various reasons. So you always next time hopefully we will have the exact charts for both candidates, and then we can use the chart comparison system to see what's what.
I was hoping that Hillary would win because it would have set a precedent for the presidency.
Well, don't worry. As long as the country keeps going, there'll be other elections and more chances to set a new president. In the meantime, this country has a problem. You don't even have to be an astrologer to see that.
What is the problem?
The problem is a Gemini president. Okay, this is what we're going to do. 10 seconds later, no, that's what we're going to do. 10 more seconds, now we're going to do something over here, over there. Geminis shift very fast. Gemini would make a good Secretary of State. They run all over, like Henry Kissinger. They went all over the world making deals. But in the top spot, well, it doesn't work out quite that way.
Now, she won the popular vote. He won the electoral vote, right?
That's right. That's the way the system is set up. This is not the first time it happened. It happened also with Gore and Bush, and it happened before that. There were other times. Abraham Lincoln was a minority president. Only 40% of the public voted for Abraham Lincoln. The Democrats were split. Woodrow Wilson was a minority president. If you took the votes of Teddy Roosevelt and William Howard Taft, way surpassed what Wilson got.
Is this election part of the 20-year circle?
No, it's not. The 20-year cycle, the next one will be 2020. And actually, the 20-year cycle is not going to work anymore. It only works when Jupiter and Saturn get together in Earth signs. Now they're going to be getting together in air signs. So that cycle will be broken.
And people will be in office and surviving this no matter what.
Well, not no matter what. That's not the only thing that could terminate a president. I mean, Zachary Taylor died in office in 1850. And he was not voted in on on one of the 20-year intervals.
Now, I'm really happy that it's gotten to the point where Trump is now president, okay? Because she couldn't cut the mustard, Hillary, so we got Trump now. And I believe that as Americans, we should all unite and hold our hands together and make this presidency work, okay?
Nice sentiment, but Pluto is now opposite the sun of the United States. When Pluto goes opposite the sun of a country, the country becomes polarized. Pluto has been doing this now for the past several years, and it's just peaking this year. So that's going to be a little bit difficult. When the Pluto gets out of there, then we'll be able to come together, but it would take a lot of work. Pluto is the planet of death and rebirth, total transformation. When it opposes the sun, that's it. It's one group over here, one group over there, and they stop talking to each other.
I think the media has been very unfair to Trump in the sense that they make fun of him, okay? They, try to mock everything he does and says. Now, from the minute that he was elected, you had Saturday Night Live. Sorry, Mr. Alec Baldwin, for being so, I don't know, not nice to the new president. And Stephen Colbert is doing the same thing. He's not being very nice. And we should support Trump and now be nice to him in every way we can, right?
Well, the country has to run, but remember, this is America. And insulting politicians is the national hobby. It's not only that; it's not just a pastime here. Insulting politicians is actually a necessity. It keeps them from thinking that they run everything. This is still America, and the people run things, not the politicians. The politicians are our servants.
But it polarizes the country even more.
That's true. The country is getting polarized. The country is already polarized. All right. It'd be nice if he'd be able to get us all together, but he has his work cut out for him. And again, remember, he's a Gemini. He can switch policies on a dime. As a matter of fact, in this particular case, I think that would be a strength. Because, if a policy doesn't work out, he can change it very fast. But this country is going through a crazy time. I do birthday charts for people. If you have a horoscope of where the sun is on your birthday, then that could set the foundation for the next 6 months to a year of your life. Now, for a country, though, a birthday chart, a solar return chart, is next to useless, because what's a year in the life of a country? So I used something longer range, Saturn returns. It takes Saturn 29 years to circle the sky. So I did every single Saturn return for the country. Now, there are several different charts for the United States. They all agree on the 4th of July, but they differ in their time. I used the two most popular charts, the Gemini rising and the Sagittarius rising. And then I did the Saturn returns for both of those charts, and they pretty well agreed. The worst chart was 1834, and it lasted till 1864. And that, of course, was the chart of the Civil War, when the country almost fell apart. Horrible, horrible aspects.
But you see nothing like that currently.
I'm getting there. The last Saturn return for the United States was 2011. That chart was every bit as bad as the 1834 chart.
And what happened 9/11, right?
Well, this is after 9/11. This is 2011, 10 years after 9/11. So basically, it's a very difficult chart. The Gemini rising chart for the United States, Venus rules the rising sign, and Saturn, the planet of difficulties, is sitting right on top of the Venus. The sun is opposite the planet Uranus, and that's going to be the same in the Sagittarius rising chart also. This is a crazy time for the country. It's not just who's in office, it's what's coming up for the world. You don't have to be an astrologer to see that we can have crises coming at us from any one of a half a dozen places. North Korea, Iran, ISIS, that's just the violent part of things. But also
domestically.
The national debt is too big. They keep saying we had to have more deficits to prime the economy, but after you've got a big deficit already, it doesn't work so well. And we're heading toward a crash there. Also, they're doing the European central banks are doing some very bad things. That's another bubble there that could hit. We are facing potentially crisis after crisis, not just in this country, but in the world. And you don't have to be an astrologer to see this. But you do have to be an astrologer to know that in the next few years, these bubbles are going to start to pop.
Now, if we're talking about just current events, we're talking about something that happened yesterday. In a nightclub, in an Artist Warehouse nightclub, 34 people were killed.
Yeah.
Why? 2 weeks ago, something else happened. And 2 weeks before that, something else happened. Why is this sort of like a concurrent situation?
Once again, throughout history, throughout the last few decades, we've always had things like this happen.
Mass murder?
Yes, sure. There was a mass murder of school children in the Midwest in 1927. The janitor built a bomb, 2 bombs, set one off for the school, killed a whole bunch of kids, and then he drove a car bomb to the school, and they didn't know that he set the first bomb, so they clustered around him, and he set off the second bomb.
So why is this
only Lindbergh's flight across the Atlantic Ocean knocked that out of the news. Barry, these things always happen. You'd have to look at the.
Talking about internationally too.
Sure. But I'm
in
talking.
Paris, France, something happened recently.
Yeah, sure. This is again a time of crisis. Listen, we had
politically and otherwise.
Barry. You know what happened after World War I? Do you know that there were terrorists right after World War I that set off bombs? You know that a terrorist took a horse-drawn wagon loaded with explosives and set it off right in front of the J.P. Morgan building. There were terrorists.
How can we prevent this from happening?
All over. This is just another time of how can we prevent it? You've got to stay sharp. It's as simple as that. This is a time.
Consult the people like yourself, the psychics, to try to prevent it.
Well, we can only prevent it for individual people. You cannot.
Why, you can do a chart on a country or a nation.
Sure. All right, you do a chart on a country. Oh my God, there's going to be some disasters. Where? It's a big country. We're several thousand miles across.
You can't pinpoint it.
Then you have to go to work. You could tell when crises are more likely. If the planet Uranus, for instance, is making afflictions, making 90-degree angles, you could tell that there's going to be increase in accidents.
And as long as there's groups like ISIS around, it's going to be a recurrent situation.
Yes, that's true. That's true. But once again, ISIS is only one thing, only one factor.
So should we expect this on a regular basis?
It's already happening on a regular basis.
There's no way to prevent it, huh?
Well, each look at your own horoscope, check your individual horoscope, and see if there's anything that's going to be hitting you.
In what sense? Explain that.
I had a client just last June. I can't mention names. She was going to visit her family in France. She bought the ticket, and then she said she got a very bad feeling about it. So she called me, and there's a technique called horary astrology. It's basically the horoscope of a question. If the question is very specific, you could look at the horoscope for the question and answer it correctly. So her question was, should she take this trip to France? I looked at the chart, and I noticed that the house, the area that governs long journeys, was not too good. But the clincher was Pluto, the planet of death, right over the rising sign. That's a hidden enemy coming out of the woodwork and getting you. So I said, do not go. You'll be in danger of death. She canceled the trip. Now, how do you verify this? I mean, she didn't take the trip, so she wasn't killed. How do you verify what would have happened?
And this was bombing at the nightclub?
Wait, no. A couple of months later, her son calls me for a reading, and the first thing when he comes in, he says, thank you for saving my mother's life. And I said, well, there's no way to verify it. He says, no. Do you know where she was going? She was going to visit her family in Nice. Her plane landed in the morning of Bastille Day, and in the evening, she was going to be on the promenade watching the fireworks when that terrorist drove a truck into the crowd, killing over 80 people. And she was an elderly woman. She could not have gotten out of the way. Yeah. Every now and then, astrology even sends chills up and down my back. So again, I couldn't prevent what happened there, but I saved one person.
That's incredible. That's why people should consult you, Bob Marks, the astrologer extraordinaire, right? But let's talk about Trump, getting back to him. So everybody thought that Hillary was going to win. That didn't happen, okay? For whatever reason, all right? So now that he's president, we should support him, okay? And bring the country together. So this man, because he's so rich, is not taking a salary, and the presidential salary can reach above $450,000 a year, number one.
Actually, Barry, Trump is saving taxes by donating his presidential salary. His taxes would be enormous, and so he's actually reducing his taxes by giving his salary away. JFK did the same thing. He was in the same situation.
Wow. Yeah. Okay, so that's number one. Number two, we also have him just saving Carrier from staying in the United States, right?
Saving who?
Carrier Corporation.
Oh yeah, Carrier. Oh yes, Carrier Corporation. Yes. Well, look, he made a bunch of promises, and let's see if he keeps them. Let's see if he's able to. He's got to be able to talk to the other side. No you see, because
who the other side is.
Yeah, because. Obama, being a Leo sun sign, wasn't too good at that exactly. Leos have a tendency, it's their way or the highway. Yeah, Bill Clinton was a Leo too, but he had Libra rising. So he could always see both sides of everything. And he could always talk, a charmer. But Obama had a little problem with there. Let's see if Trump will be able. He's a Gemini, so at least they talk.
So now he's president-elect, and he's making all these strides, okay, and accomplishing all these things, which is incredible, right?
Well, because he is an outsider, he doesn't know the way things are normally done. So he's just feeling his way. One thing for sure that will shake up the bureaucracy, but. Like I say, let's see specifically what happens, because he is an executive. He can make decisions, but he'll find it a little more difficult making decisions in the government than with his private business. His private business, remember, he was in charge. Now he's got people over here. He's got people over there. Let's see what happens.
What about his selection for cabinet members?
I'd have to look at the horoscopes of each individual cabinet member.
I see. Well, you know what's so incredible is that he's not even in office yet. He's president-elect, and he's making all these accomplishments.
Well, yeah, he's one thing for sure. He is an executive. I remember years ago the Wallman Rink. He had an apartment overlooking Central Park at the time, and his kids wanted to go ice skating, and they couldn't because the Wallman Rink was broken. So he finally went to the city and said, "Let me take care of it." And the city would always have to take the lowest bidder. He went to the most expensive company, and it got done 1, 2, 3. You see, because government has to work one way, and he's used to working another way. What is troubling, though, is the fact that some of his people are saying that, never mind what he says here and there. It's I don't like when they say something and then 10 minutes later it's something else. He's got to break himself of that habit.
Now, I once interviewed him when he was married to Marla Maples. I attended and covered the opening night of Will Rogers Follies on Broadway, and he was there. He comes up the red carpet. I stick my hand out trying to shake his hand, and he said, "What is wrong with you?" I said, there's nothing wrong with me. What's wrong with you? I said, why won't you let me shake your hand? He said, don't you know better? Didn't you do research? I said, no, what kind of research? He said, well, if you did research on me, you'd find out that I'm germ-phobic, quote, unquote, and I don't shake anyone's hands. So what do you make out of that? Now he's shaking hands now because he just won the presidency and he had to do that anyway to get elected.
Well, he's a Gemini. They can shift on a dime. Yeah.
Are they germ-phobic too?
No, it's Virgo would be more likely to be germ-phobic or Cancer. But interesting, he's a Gemini, and Marla Maples was a Scorpio. There's no. Oh God.
He's on his fourth wife right now.
Fourth, I lost count. But at any rate, that certainly was not going to last.
I have a question for you. The question I want to ask you, and maybe you saw this in his chart or in his profile somewhere. He is a person who is sort of like beyond the boundary lines. He crosses them, right? I mean, he has already had interaction with all the foreign countries and foreign heads, and some are, existing with him and his policies, and others aren't. Why is he already making the splash?
For one thing, he's a Gemini with the moon in Sagittarius. No patience. He's not gonna sit there and wait. He's also born with Mars right over his rising sign. Mars is action. This is not a man who sits still. He always has to be doing something. Whether what he does is good or bad, that's another question. But he is not going to be sitting still, and you're not going to be seeing him too much on the golf course.
Bob Marks, why did he win? He has no experience, and he won.
Once again, you'd have to do a chart for when the first person cast the first vote. But again, remember, the country is highly polarized, and it's the planet Uranus is coming around. Well, Uranus already has been hitting us. We've had upheavals ever since 2011, one after another, and that's going to continue.
What is going to continue?
Okay, Uranus and Pluto. Every time those two planets make so-called stressful angles, the world goes crazy. But even after they make the angles, even when you think, okay, those planets are moved away, it's not going to affect us anymore, it still affects us. There were 5 times in the 1930s, between 1931 and 1935, when the planet Uranus and the planet Pluto were 90 degrees apart. Uranus is sudden, crazy, unexpected change. Pluto is a planet of great power. It's the planet of death, rebirth, extremes, and total change. During that time, China was invaded by Japan. Then Hitler took power in Germany. And then, after that, Mussolini invaded Ethiopia. Catastrophic as those things were, they only set the stage for World War II. Because Uranus and Pluto were in what's called cardinal signs, action signs. Uranus was in Aries, like it is now, and Pluto was in the sign of Cancer. Action signs only care about action. They get the ball rolling. So the ball kept rolling, and we got World War II. Now we just had 7 squares, and things were in total upheaval since 2011. That's going to continue. And by the way, I would say by 2024, Iran gets the bomb.
Wow. Yeah. Iran gets the what?
The bomb. The big one.
You mean they get it and they use it on other countries?
Ironically, I think they won't be aiming for Israel first. They might be looking at Saudi Arabia.
Wow. Now, let me ask you about Hillary Clinton, okay? I was hoping she won because it would set a precedent for the presidency. Every other country has women heading it, okay? You have it in England, you have it everywhere else practically, except the United States. But now this was a chance for the United States to have its first woman president, okay? And people were very happy about that, okay, especially the Democrats and people who like Hillary. But apparently not enough people liked Hillary, even though she won the popular vote, to have her win the electoral vote states. So is that the problem? Or were they afraid to elect a woman as president because she didn't have enough moxie or guts to run the country?
I'm sure it was a mix of both. I'm sure there were some people who just didn't want to vote for a woman ever. There were other
about her emails?
There were other.
Or her
Yeah,
texting?
that's right. There were other people who didn't want to vote for this particular woman because, let's put it. This election, both candidates, both of them, were so tremendously unpopular. I mean, if you had
experience in the government, holding offices.
you could have experience and still be unpopular. Lots of those Illinois governors who spent time in prison, who were sent to prison, they had experience in government too, and they're in jail.
So what do you say about that in terms of who was running and their qualifications and why they won?
At any rate, it's still all in the stars. Hillary apparently had Saturn going down in her chart. Trump had Saturn going up in his chart. And that's apparently there were enough people who, even though they didn't like Trump, this election, people voted for the candidate that they hated the least. That's what happened. They voted for the candidate that they hated the least, and we just have to keep our fingers crossed that we get through the next 4 years, and then we've got 2020.
Will Trump be reelected?
That's a little premature at this point. Let him get inaugurated first. We could take a look at his inauguration chart. The inauguration chart can actually show.
Will there also be a country 4 years?
There will be a country. Let me see here. Inauguration. The new chart. I'll just set it up for January the 20th. Nice thing about the Constitution, they set the exact time to be 2017. All right, and it's going to be at high noon, 12 p.m., and it's going to be on the Capitol building. All right. Just use the automatic atlas, CAPITOL, Capitol Building, District of Columbia, 77 West, 00 minutes and 34 seconds. Let's see what we've got. That's an interesting one. Well, the sun is always at the top. Are there any stressful angles? Yes, the planet Saturn. Oh. Saturn is at 23 degrees of Sagittarius. Mars is at 24 degrees of Pisces.
And?
That's a big problem. Last time we had that.
Will there be a country at that time? Elect someone?
The last time that happened, whose chart was that in? I believe the second Bush. That tends toward war. War or violence. It's violent. It's a violent combination. So
you think that Trump will push people to, sort of like work against us?
Now, what this is going to do, um the rising sign. The rising sign is very important. That's the sign that's rising on the eastern horizon, also called the ascendant or the ascending sign. It shows, well, that's the start of the horoscope. And the rising sign is Taurus. It's ruled by the planet Venus, and Venus also is afflicted by Saturn. This country has problems. Now, Saturn...
Should we all move to Canada?
It's not going to work. The Saturn is sitting in house number 8. That's the house of other people's money. That's the house of credit, credit-related matters. The deficit is already pretty big. So this could be a big problem. There seems to be a fight there over money. Big battle over money. Let me see.
You mean being that the United States needs it desperately to survive?
Actually, wait. There's a good aspect on the other side. Okay. All right. Saving grace. The planet Uranus and the planet Jupiter are making good aspects to the Saturn. So we've got good aspects, bad aspects, good aspects, bad aspects. Up, down, up, down, up, down. It will not be... let him get through the first term first. Call me back in 2020, and we'll talk about it then. You know, first let's get to 2020. But this is a wild chart. The fact that he's got the planet Uranus making a good aspect to Saturn in this chart shows that he will be trying new and inventive things. The fact that he's got Jupiter making a good aspect, well, that gives him optimism, enthusiasm.
What about him reacting so harshly to what country? Was it Mexico? You know, in terms of building walls around, you know, that city?
Fortunately, he's a Gemini. Apparently, he's changed his mind.
And has he changed his mind about, you know, having Hillary go to jail?
It's if he did that, he would divide the country. You know, if you think we're not talking to each other now, you just wait and see if he does that. No, that's remember when Gerald Ford got in, he pardoned Nixon, and he had to do that because otherwise the country would have gone through conniptions. It went through conniptions anyway, but it would even more conniptions.
Why was he so hung up on Hillary's emails and voicemails and whatever it was?
It was an election campaign. In an election campaign, you see, other countries, they settle the elections with guns in the street. Here, we settle it with words. So instead of people getting killed, insults fly back and forth. Horrible accusations. But at the end, it's just hot air.
And what about all the women that Trump has been rumored to be with?
What about them? Get me their birth dates. I'll take a look.
What came out of that is the fact that women felt they were mistreated.
Yeah, but again, if people thought that his treatment of women was so horrible, they shouldn't have voted for him. It's as simple as that. And apparently, enough people were able to overcome that and vote for him anyway.
There wasn't enough candidates, I think. You know, that really.
We had 4 candidates running for president. Bernie? Well, first of all, Bernie was not running an independent campaign. He was not running for president. He was running for the Democratic nomination.
What about the recount?
What about the recount? I'm sure it won't change any unless if the recount says that several of those states really voted for Hillary. There's no precedent for that. There's no precedent. When they count the votes, it should be reasonably accurate to begin with. If it's not, then it's the biggest case of voter fraud ever. And quite frankly, the planets are crazy up there now, but I don't think they're that crazy.
What about the debates? Did you watch them? And how each candidate slammed each other?
That's why I didn't watch the debates. That's like watching, wrestling on television. It's just a put up.
That he wanted Hillary to go to jail.
It's just a put up show. It's a put up act. And by the way, I didn't vote for either of them.
Really? Who did you vote for?
Not saying, but I didn't vote for either of them.
Wow.
Both political parties are just corrupt. They promise you the world, and then they get in and they do whatever they want to do anyway. I had a client who used to work years ago for a firm that did surveys for politicians. She kept that job for 1 year, and then she told me she quit that job and she has never voted again. Because the politicians, they find out, the survey finds out 90% of the people are concerned about high crime and 85% are concerned about high taxes. So the politician writes a platform, I'm going to fight crime and I'm going to lower taxes, and then they get in and they do nothing. That's all it is. So both political parties are just corrupt. They say whatever they have to say to get elected. And once they're elected, they don't do anything except make the situation worse. So that's the big problem in this country. And that goes far beyond any one particular election.
This is some election.
Yeah.
So what do you see happening to the country from an election like this?
Again, do you have to be an astrologer to see that we're going to a time of a roller coaster? It's going to be one crazy thing after another. I
have never seen such infighting or such resistance to Trump's election as I have in the past.
It's Pluto. People are attached to their particular view of the world, and each side thinks that the other side is evil, not just mistaken. Each side thinks that the other side is evil. You get situations like that before civil wars. This is where, thank goodness, the country has Gemini rising. So 99% of it is talk.
Explain to me why Hillary won New York, New Jersey, Connecticut, and California.
You don't need an astrologer to explain that. They're Democratic states. They have tremendous Democratic majorities. Now, if she had lost any of those states, you'd need an explanation. But you don't need an explanation of why she won. That's like asking for an explanation of, why you got dressed this morning. Look at my horoscope and see why I got dressed. You wake up in the morning, you get dressed. You don't have to look at your horoscope.
She lost Florida, and she lost the election. So I don't get it.
She lost. She lost. I'm going to have to go do the horoscopes of every single state in the union to answer that question. You look at the country as a whole, she lost. She had a bad horoscope. Her horoscope was worse than Trump's. That's basically it. Saturn was on the downside for her, and it was on the upside for him. And that's why she lost.
Do you think the emails hurt her chance to win?
There were so many issues, you can't possibly separate them all out. Just look at the overall picture. Her horoscope was worse than his.
And it's just that you say.
That's right. There's nothing. Look at this planet over here. This explains everything. No, it doesn't. You look at the whole chart.
Was either candidate concerned about the astrological signs?
I don't know. Neither one of them came to me for a reading.
What do you think an astrologer like yourself, an accomplished astrologer like that, would have told them, or what advice would you have given them? Because we do remember that Nancy Reagan saved the president's life, Ronald Reagan's life, because of her belief in astrology.
She didn't save him because of her belief. She saved him because astrology worked, and she knew it. It's as simple as that. Belief has nothing to do with it. Science doesn't depend on belief. It's real.
So how did she save Ronald Reagan's life?
She just kept looking at have her astrologer kept looking at the charts and maneuvered him around tough corners. He did. Reagan was able to constantly outmaneuver the Democrats, and they had the majority in Congress, and he still outmaneuvered them.
Unbelievable. Yeah. Why didn't either of these two intellectuals consult an astrologer so they could make this an easier path for them to win?
How do you know that neither of them consulted an astrologer?
Because the fight in the primary was so vicious and so hurtful that it even broke my heart.
How do you know that neither one of them consulted an astrologer? Maybe they did.
Then they would have been more secure, with winning the election.
If you know what's going to be happening, if you know what the influences are on your horoscope, you stand a better chance. But as I say, how do you know that they didn't? Lots of people consult astrologers secretly.
Both were surprised at the outcome.
Yeah. Just about everybody was surprised at the outcome.
Including, the voters.
Yeah, that's right.
It's unbelievable. I have a question. What does the future look like for the winner? I mean, as far as the anti-sentiment goes.
Well, you saw that inauguration chart. Mars squares Saturn. That's a battle. That's a constant battle.
Will Trump be impeached?
I was talking to some other astrologers. One of them said that she's been watching presidential elections for decades and talking to other astrologers, and she says she didn't know any election where somebody didn't say that the winner was going to be killed or going to be impeached. There was always somebody who was predicting that. So to be impeached, you have to do something really, really horrible. All right, and let's see. I'll tell you one thing. On Inauguration Day, Saturn is going to be right opposite Trump's sun. That is a difficult time for him, just around the time of inauguration, and that could mean a danger to his health. It could mean some other. It could mean some other dangers to him too. So the Secret Service is going to have their work cut out for them. He's going to have to watch that square. It's a difficult one.
Now, what about Hillary, who lost the election? She comes from a heritage of being in political office herself, okay, and has the experience. She was married to Bill Clinton, who was president for 2 terms, and didn't that count for her instead of against her?
What counts for you and what counts against you, there's a whole bunch of factors, and you have to add them all up.
Around the country, so he's experienced and can give that experience to Hillary, his wife.
Apparently, the people who voted for Trump didn't see it that way. You don't look at one little issue here and one little issue there.
This is a man without any experience for political office. I don't get it.
Apparently, a lot of people around the country didn't care about that. It's what happened with the people in the Midwest was, the 2 coasts are doing fine in this country. The middle of the country is not doing so fine, and these people were dissatisfied.
What about all these people who have alternate lifestyles, like the gay and lesbians? What about single women? What about all the off-site kind of stuff, not the mainstream stuff? What about all those people, who are issue conscious but can't make their point? Do you think these candidates will hear and listen? Or, the winner, Trump will hear and listen.
Candidates in this country historically have always claimed that they've listened. They always say, I hear you. They don't listen. They care only about one thing, getting elected. All right? And then once they're elected, the question is, how can I stay in power? How can I get reelected?
Is that why we don't have a Jewish president or a gay president or a lesbian president?
It's, how do you know we haven't had gay or lesbian, well, never a woman president yet, but how do you know we haven't had gay presidents? You know, to do a little more detective work.
When I interviewed Barney Frank, he said to me, how could I run for president? A, number one, I'm Jewish, and B, number two, I'm gay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, all right. So he didn't want to do it. But you know that story about the first Jewish president. He calls up his mother, Mom, I'm sorry, I've been very busy with the international situation. Look, the Queen of England is coming to town. Why not you come over here? I'll introduce you. You know, we'll have a nice time over the weekend. So a motorcade comes to her house, takes her to the airport. Air Force One takes her to Washington, and she's there in the White House. She meets the Queen of England. You know, she has to deal with her daughter-in-law, but she loves the grandkids. She goes back home. Air Force One takes her back to JFK Airport. The motorcade takes her back to Long Island. And a friend of hers calls, So, where were you this weekend? I was visiting my son. Oh, your son the doctor? No, the other one.
Anyway, so what do you predict as far as the future goes for the president-elect and the country?
Roller coaster ride. Never a dull moment for the next few years. The aspects up there are crazy. You know, they discovered a new planet a couple of years ago. It's called Eris. The fellow who discovered it, he originally named it Xena. I guess he liked the TV program. But it turned out that the studio that made Xena Warrior Princess copyrighted the name. So these astronomers did what they always do. They looked through a book of Greek mythology. Oh, we haven't used this one yet. So they picked Eris, the goddess of strife, to name the new planet. Well, Eris right now is right on the planet Uranus, and it's been there all summer. And it has been a chaotic summer. Those two planets, Uranus and Eris, were exact in a very active sign, Aries, Eris and Aries. And they were together in June and in September, and they're going to make a last conjunction in March. So at least until March, and probably for several months afterwards, it's going to be chaos, never a dull moment. As a matter of fact, the most unusual thing on the news is when you tune in one day and they say, this is a very calm day, nothing is going on. Nobody would believe it.
I don't know what to say as far as the world goes, the candidates go, people go. Will we survive this?
We'll survive it somehow, but the world is going to go through flip-flops. And again, you don't need to be an astrologer to see this. The European Union is in big trouble. Britain is leaving, and Italy is shaky. Italy is going to be going through a somewhat chaotic time right now, too. And it's not just those two countries. There's big problems all over Europe, and you see the Europeans are getting themselves further and further into hock. And let's see what happens. I really have to look at the chart for the European Union, though, to see that. I haven't checked it lately.
Are we talking about the economic system?
Oh yeah. The European banks have They're wildly overextended. It's a disaster waiting to happen right there. Actually, when you consider all of the potential disasters around the world, this country is still in better shape, and it's still not going to be pretty here. Roller coaster ride. Expect the unexpected. Make sure that you have enough reserve cash.
What about the military?
The military. Where's the threat? Where's the threat?
Increased revenue for the military?
Increased revenue for the military. What we're fighting now is ISIS. You don't fight ISIS with nuclear weapons. You don't fight ISIS with, well, a massive amount of troops on the ground. It doesn't take millions of people to hunt down a small group.
I think that because Trump is very aggressive, military-wise, political-wise, international-wise, as far as, keeping America first and out there, and being the best country anyone else could live in. Do you think that he's pissed off enough people to, have a nuclear war here, a World War III?
No. World War III is not in the works in the next 4 years. However, now that he's president, he has a chance to piss off a lot more people. He is born with Mars on the rising. He cannot ignore any attack. And as president, he's going to have to learn how to do that. Hillary got him in one of the debates about a small issue, and he immediately went on the attack. This is what he does. It's a knee-jerk reaction with him.
Can he calm down?
He's going to have to. He's going to have to.
Mellow out?
He's going to have to. Otherwise, we've got an even bigger, not World War III, but we'll be having one tiny little thing after another, one tiny argument that normally should have been ignored after another.
Is he capable of putting his finger on the button?
Mars rising? Yeah, he could, but hopefully, hopefully there's enough people around him to say, "Are you crazy?"
Is there anything else you want to say to our viewers? Happy and a healthy New Year.
Happy holidays, Happy New Year. Keep your fingers crossed.
And see a psychiatrist and an astrologer wherever you go, right?
Well, definitely see an astrologer.
And I want to wish all my viewers and fans a very happy, healthy, and prosperous holiday and New Year. Let's say Happy Kwanzaa, Happy New Year, Happy everything. Thank you, and good night.